everybody. I am Denise.
And I'm Ethan.
And we are here yet again with another episode of our Marriage Weekly series. And today we've got a test for you. So I'm going to start with the ladies. Ladies, do you remember when you met your husband? I want you to think back to before you got married, to when you were newly engaged. And let's say Ethan and I came up to you and said, hey, tell us about your husband-to-be. Now, we know your eyes would be just all lit up and you'd be like, oh my gosh, he's so smart and he's so funny and he's so good at this and that and oh my gosh, he's amazing. And you'd just be just going on and just gushing how wonderful your future husband was. So now I want you to fast forward. Maybe you've been married for a year, 5 years, 10 years, maybe 50 years. Whatever, you're married. You've been married for a while. And you run into Ethan and I, and we say, so tell us about your husband. You know what usually happens? It's not what we heard all those years ago. It is, he never does this. He doesn't do that. He's not measuring up here or there, and it becomes a whole negative pile of yuck. And that's the only way to put it. And you know what the difference is between before and after? The one word?
Marriage.
And it's sad to say, but marriage, unfortunately, gives us unrealistic expectations. So what happens is, let's say Ethan and I. So Ethan and I get together and we're getting married. And what happens is I have all these hopes and I have all these dreams and expectations, and I put them all right on his shoulders. And you know what that means?
It's not fair.
It's not fair, because you know what happens is he is a human. He's imperfect, and so am I. And what happens is, because we're imperfect people, we are not able to measure up and to meet those expectations. So what happens is, initially we are attracted to that person and we're excited about that person. And then reality sets in, and instead we focus on the negative.
Look, guys, we're called to love our wives like no one else. And you want to ask yourself this question: do I really love my wife like no one else has loved her? And remember, for us, the benchmark is Jesus. That's who we take our direction from, and that's who we think is the epitome of love. So do you love your wives like no one else has ever loved your wife? You know, do you take an active interest in the things that they like, their interests, their hobbies? And I don't just mean financially supporting your spouse, and that could be either ways. You know, at different points in our marriage, you know, we had different incomes where Denise supported me for a time and now I get to support her for a time. And I'm not talking about finances though. I'm talking about taking an active interest in your spouse's hobbies, your spouse's interests, your spouse's desires, things that they like to do. You know, like, for me, I like to hunt. I actually really like to hunt, and Denise does not. But Denise does a ton of stuff that enables me to go hunting every year, and there's financial support. But I'm not. To me, that's irrelevant, because the support that she gives me emotionally, physically, the time that she puts into helping me set up stuff in the woods. I mean, and she doesn't hunt, but yet she still does that. And on the flip side, like running or these go live videos, which I'm not always so fond of doing, I actually am starting to love doing it, because it's time I get to spend with my wife, you know, and that's something that is important to her. And even at first, when I was maybe gun shy or a little embarrassed to do it, once I started doing it and I started having a good time with her, it became easier, and it's fun. And take an interest in your spouse's interests. You know, you want your wife to be able to say that you loved her like no one else has ever been able to love her. And that's really the goal here, is we want to love differently, we want to love sincerely, and we don't want to put expectations on our spouse, because it's not fair. We are all people, and every one of us will fall flat on our face. Every one of us will let our spouse down at some point in our marriage. It's going to happen. We're not perfect. So we don't want to put unrealistic expectations like, I expect you to make me happy. That's not possible. You know, maybe for a temporary moment in time, but true happiness comes from above. We have to be focused in the right places to find happiness. So, you know, just be asking yourselves that. Do you really love your spouse? And if you say yes to that, then prove it.
So this devotional that we're reading, before I give you the challenge, because we are leaving you with the challenge tonight, this devotional that we're reading, the end of the chapter that we're doing this weekly, talked about how, you know, we're all going to die. And it's an unfortunate, sad fact, but actually heaven awaits, but we're all going to pass at some point. And you want to be able to say, okay, my husband or wife, and thinking in the back of your mind, they may have had these little, annoyances or things that bothered you, but ultimately it's not what you're thinking
I
about.
probably have many.
I probably do too. But the thing you're going to be thinking is, you know what though? He loved me like no one has ever loved me. And that's really what you want to focus on. It doesn't matter if you're newlywed or you've been married 50 years. It's not too late to start loving that person next to you like no other. Because here's the thing, and that's what where the challenge comes in. So the challenge is, if you pray, I want you to pray to God and ask him how you can love your spouse so they feel love like no other. Now, depending on your spouse, that could be different things. It could be, like for my spouse, it could be cooking him an entire meal and bringing him drinks and just catering to him. Your spouse, it might be bringing them home a present, or it might be doing a chore that they don't really want to do or that you've been putting off doing for a while. It could be something simple, it could be something generous. But ask God to tell you what that is, and then do that for your spouse and continue to do that for your spouse. And here's the thing, what happens is when you focus on what you can do for your spouse, for that other person, suddenly you're not focusing on the negative and the things that they're not doing. And I'll tell you, it can change your marriage.
And fellas, this also means you got to listen and not just hear the words, listen to the words. Ask your spouse the things that they need or that they want. And it's okay. I know I say wants. I can have some unrealistic wants at times in my life. But there are things that I want that aren't unrealistic, and there's things that Denise wants that are not unrealistic. And so we got to pay attention when our spouse talks, and that means we got to have those conversations. And it's okay to say, hey, what areas maybe am I not measuring up? What areas can I grow? What areas can I do a better job in to make you feel more loved? These are conversations that we should be having, and it's not, this isn't something for newlyweds, or this isn't something for the old heads that have been married 100 years. This is for every one of us. We need to have these conversations because things change in time. We're all going to get older, so maybe I need to be pushed around in a walker at some point versus, chasing her around in one.
You better be rubbing my feet in that walker.
Yay! No, I'm
so
just
we
kidding.
just really want you guys, and even if you are, maybe you're dating and you're engaged and you're working towards marriage, keep this in mind, because right now things may seem absolutely amazing, and your marriage can continue that way. I met him over 10 years ago, and I am still absolutely crazy about him. We have our moments, and we have to work on our marriage. Marriage is not all, glamorous and beautiful. It's hard work at times.
Yep.
And we're doing this devotional together because we're growing together. I will share in the comments the link to this devotional because I really believe it's something that can bless any marriage. And so, again, either ask God what you can do for your spouse, or ask your spouse what you can do, and start doing and stop focusing on the negative, and it will really impact your marriage positively. So thank you for joining us tonight. You guys have a great night.